Let's challenge ourselves with coding challenge number 2. And in this one, we're going to continue with our football betting application. And let me start by saying that this challenge is actually a bit difficult. All right? But that is on purpose. So after all, it's called a challenge. And so you should really challenge yourself with these exercises. Otherwise, it could be called a coding copy and paste, right? So please try your best to solve these, and you can try the problem-solving framework that we talked about earlier. And of course, you can also use Google, MDN, and so on and so forth. Okay? But with that out of the way, let's get into the exercises. And the first one is to loop over the game.scored array, and then print each of the players to the console along with the goal number. So this one is not that hard. And so let's just, So the object is down here. So we're going to use the same object, all right? So this is the array that I was talking about. And so here, in this case, we should print Lewandowski goal 1. Then here, goal 2, Gnarby, goal 3, Lewandowski, and goal 4, Hummels. Okay. Then number 2, use a loop to calculate the average odd and log it to the console. And we already studied how to calculate averages, and so you can go check that out if you don't remember. And here you should actually directly use the object itself. So don't destruct the object first into variables and then use that to calculate the average, but instead really calculate the average of the elements in the object. Okay? Then number 3, I want you to print the 3 odds to the console, and do that in a nice formatted way, like you can see it here. Now here, you're not allowed to hard code the names of the teams, all right? So instead, get them directly from the game object itself. Now, of course here, except for draw, because that's nowhere in the game object. So as a hint, I have here that the odds and the game objects have the exact same property names. And so you can use that knowledge maybe to get the name of the teams here. So these are the 3 exercises for this challenge, but then I also have a bonus. Now let me just tell you that I will not solve this bonus question in this video because it would take me a little bit too long. But I will still put the solution in the final code of this section, so in the GitHub repository, so you can check out the solution there if you attempt to do this bonus. So this one is really hard, and what I want you to do is to create an object called scorers, which will contain the name of the players who scored as properties. And so Gnarby, Hummels, and Lewandowski were the players who scored in this game. And as a value for each of the properties, we want the number of goals. All right? So this means Lewandowski scored 2 goals and the other 2 players scored just 1 goal each. So this is a little bit difficult again, but you can do it. Well, at least with some research and with some reviewing of all the material of the course so far. Anyway, good luck with this challenge. Take your time, and I see you once you're ready. All right. Hopefully you did at least 1 or 2 of these exercises. And so here goes my solution. And keep in mind once more that my solution might be different from yours, but that's totally okay as long as yours produces the same result. So here the goal is to score over the scored array and print all of the players to the console. So const, and let's again fix that later, and then of game.scored, and now we actually want the entries. All right, and we want the indexes because we also want the number of the goal, remember? So goal 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and so entries will give us that. And so now we just need to destructure that into the index and then the player. Okay. Actually, we don't even need the curly braces. Let's just say console.log and then goal, then the index +1 so that it starts at goal number 1. And then simply the player. Let's take a look. Oh, and now we have the problem here that I'm accessing game before it is initialized. And so the problem is that the game is down here. So I will have to take this game object now to that other challenge. So let's just cut it from here and put it here. So now it should work. And indeed, we get the 4 goals nicely printed to the console, exactly in the order in which they appear here. All right, next one. And in this one, we have to calculate the average odd. So the average basically of these 3 numbers here. So what we're going to do is to loop over this object here and simply add all of these 3 values together and then finally divide them by the number of elements here. And so that's how you calculate an average. And so we start by creating the average and set it to 0. And so again, we already did that before, I believe. And so now we can loop over the object such as I explained it to you before. Const odd of. And now what do we actually want? Do we want the keys or the values or both? Well, in this case, we are really just interested in the values, right? And so this object.values will give us an array essentially containing these 3 values. So we need to say game.odds. Okay, and now in each iteration, we will simply add this odd to the average so that then in the end we can divide it by the length of this object.values array. So let's do that. Plus equal the current odd, and then finally average divided equal, and so this is a new one, by object.values game.odds, and then let's log it to the console. So this one here means basically average is equal average divided by this here. And this is actually the same as up here. So let's refactor it into, let's say, simply odds. And then let's use that here. Odds and odds. And we have a problem. So let's do some debugging here. I will start by taking a look at the average after it is computed here in the array. So average. Oh, so here we have a number, which means that something is wrong here in the division, right? And I see it's because we need to write odds.length. Okay, and so then it will be the number 3 in this case. So before I was dividing by the entire array, and that doesn't make any sense. And so now we should see something close to 4 here. Yeah, so 3.7 essentially. And so that's our result. Okay, and you can go over this code here again if you need to understand it even further. But now let's move on here to exercise number 3. And this time the goal is to print basically the content of the object to the console. So we're going to loop over that. And again, I will first say what we need here actually. So we want to print both the team and the odd. So we need the entire object. And so, just as we learned in the previous lecture, we use object.entries of game.odds. Okay, and so we know that we get an array of arrays which in each position will have both the team and the odd. All right, so let's say team and odd. All right, and so here it is us who define the variable name because it is now an array. So we don't have to match any property names. And let's start by simply logging both to the console team and odd. Okay, and so indeed, we already have that kind of working. We already have the team here, and we have the 3 odd values. Now what we want to do is to create a string like this. Let's actually copy this so we know what we have to do. And by the way, here, notice again what I explained to you in the last lecture, how in the array we use the entries method to get the entries of the array, but in the object we have to use object.entries and then pass into the function the object that we are interested in. So that's fundamentally different, so keep that in mind. Okay, so here we now want to build a string like that. So odd of victory Bayern Munich, draw or victory Borussia Dortmund. And so here we're going to need some more logic. Let's just put here some dots. And now here the odd. So the odd is the easy part. So we have that one already finished. But now here we need some more complex logic. And actually let's create this part of the string. So like victory Bayern Munich or Borussia Dortmund or draw, let's create that here in a separate value. So let's call this one team string. And so here what I'm going to use is to use the ternary operator. Okay, so I will say that if the team here is X, like we have it here, then the string should become draw. And so that will then create this here. So team equals X, then the result should be draw. But if not, then we need the team name itself. So how will we get that? And remember, there was a hint about this. So note how the odds and the game objects have the same property names. And indeed, here we have team 1, team 2, and here we have team 1 and team 2 as well. And so here are the team names. And so let's now get these team names using these keys that we already have here. So we want the string victory. And then we go to the game object and team. Let's check. Now I know, of course, we need to put that string here. So team string, and it works. Beautiful. So let's just recap this part here. So here we go into the game, which is the entire game object, and we take the property team. But team is already this property name here, right? So it's team 1 or team 2. And so then we take that to read the property with the same name from the game object. And so therefore we get Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. Okay, great. So this one was a little bit more tough, but we managed to do it in the end. Now again, I will not create the solution for the bonus, but you can always find it in the final code of this section. And with that being said, let's now go back to learning some more JavaScript.